All right, I'd like to describe to you with my double whiteboards how I see the landscape of the country and the news, etc. I'm going to take it from two perspectives. Number one, what is the situation for Republicans? Situation for Republicans as I see it. Yeah, I'll move that anyway. Looks like this. As you know, not everybody has good information, and sometimes we all believe things that aren't true, including me. On the Republican side, this is how I see the landscape. Sometimes there are rumors that are started at grassroots level. And these rumors could come from anywhere. These are just three examples. Could be 4chan or Reddit or somewhere in X. And it's a bunch of BS. And sometimes that BS trickles up to leadership and famous people. And so you'll get some Republicans who will believe some of it. And they'll get Republican voters to believe it. And then the Democrats will criticize them for being wrong about something that's wrong, right? Now, this looks about it. Does that kind of capture the Republican side of things? I'm trying to get it out of my own way here. Let's see. Would you say that largely captures what happens? Now, I'm not saying that everything Republicans believe is wrong. That's nothing like that. I'm saying that when they're wrong, because everybody's wrong, right? But when they're wrong, it usually looks like this. It bubbles up from some rumors. Some politicians pick up on it. Republicans say, oh, other people are saying it too. And next thing you know, there's some BS. And then the Democrats pounce, and they fact check you, and they make you look stupid. And then they say, all Republicans are dumb because some of them believe this stuff. So that's basically the landscape, all right? But what does the landscape look like on the other side? Does it look like this? Not as much. No. Looks a little different. It's way more complicated. But it looks sort of like this. This would be the Democrat news landscape. If I can get out of my own way. All right. So I think most of you can see it now. So you've got the CIA and the FBI and various Democrat operatives who feed their fake media. These are just some of the names we know are the illegitimate media. So these are the ones who are being influenced by Democrat leadership and various entities that they have some control over. So the media is fake news, but Democrats are not, they're completely unaware. They think that the Democrats believe that both sides have their own fake news, and that's really the whole story. Oh, we had a little fake news, sure, but you had a little fake news. Most of the news is true. Nothing like that is happening. In the political world, nothing. You know, the news about hurricanes is probably real, but political news is coming from influencers. The media is completely corrupt, and the right-wing media is only looked at by people on the right. So the left is completely unaware that there's any counter-narrative. They never see them. So they take their fake news and they get support from, the other fake entities which they support. Oh, the ADL says you're bad too. Oh, the media said you're bad, but these other people, they agree. These are all funded by Democrats. So they're funded to look like legitimate organizations, but really they're just Democrat organizations to attack the other side. What about the fact checkers? Also funded mostly by Democrats, also fake. And so once you've got all of these other organizations, from the media to these funded Democrat organizations, you've got a real big ball of fake news. That's why there are over 20 hoaxes on my hoax list that the Democrats all believe are real. At least 20 major hoaxes that went through this machine. The outcome of this is that the Democrats are brainwashed, literally. That is not to say that Republicans have only the truth. Nothing like that's happening. Republicans are also wrong about things quite often, but it's bubbling up from the bottom. It's not coming from the top. From the Democrats, it's all top-down stuff. And so their poor voters don't have any idea what's going on. They think that this is some kind of a legitimate process, and they don't have any way to find out it's not. They don't have a mechanism to know that it's not real. Because the only thing that's telling them it's not real are people like me, and they've already told you I'm a disgraced cartoonist, and the ADL told you that I'm a Holocaust denier. That's what the ADL said. The leader of the ADL, I'm not just saying that somebody sent a tweet, the actual leader of the ADL labeled me a Holocaust denier. Now, I don't have to defend that. You know I'm not a Holocaust denier. But it shows you how the machine works, right? When you saw the Phil Bump interview in which he got completely demolished for being a fake news guy, you could see all of this finally being exposed. It was obvious he wasn't a genuine writer with real opinions. You could tell that it came from somewhere, and he was supporting some kind of a machine. All right, so that's what happens to the Democrat voters. The Democrat voters get brainwashed, and the Republican voters get shadow banned so they can't fight back. I would be very surprised if this gets big traffic on YouTube, if you know what I mean. Watch the traffic it gets, let's say, on the X platform, and compare that to the baseline. And then watch what happens on YouTube and compare that to my baseline. Do you think they're going to be the same? Very little chance of that, because most of the platforms, the media platforms, which I accidentally erased, this would say social media, they're going to make sure that the other side that has been brainwashed by the system, they're going to make sure they don't see me. Only the people who already agree with me are going to see me. And, of course, there's prosecutions going on, so the Department of Justice is making sure that if you have an opinion such as the one I just expressed, that they're coming after you. So, here's what is really, really interesting about this week. The entire gears of the machine are now obvious. You can see the entire Hunter Biden money-making scheme, right? It's all laid out. You can see every part of it. Now, the Phil Bumps of the world, the illegitimate people, are going to say, but, you haven't made the case that there's a direct payment from Hunter Biden for any favors that went to Joe Biden. But we know he paid his expenses, and that's the way it works. We know that there's not going to be a piece of paper. We know that what influence buying and selling looks like. It's all laid out. But Democrats don't know it. Don't know it. Here's what would change everything. I don't know that it'll happen, but if you want some optimism, all it would take is to draw this diagram into a better form, and then every time there's a story that can be better understood by this landscape, you print it with a story, and then you highlight the parts that have been activated. For example, some people say, I don't know if this is true, but some say the FBI is more influencing the New York Times, whereas the CIA is more influencing the Washington Post. I don't know if that's true, but wouldn't it be interesting to see a story in the news where you could light up these parts and show which ones were involved? So you could once you could show the landscape and how different it is on the Republican side, you could possibly for the first time release some of the Democrats who, in my opinion, are just victims. I have to say that in 2016, when I started talking about politics in public, and it'd be a big fight between one side versus the other side, and to me it just felt like, oh, we just have different opinions. Different opinions, that's all. And we're fighting it out. That's the way it's supposed to work. But once I learned the entire landscape, and I realized that their opinions are assigned to them, and then they're solidified by this entire constellation of, let's say, people who are just slapping some paint on the turd, if you know what I mean. That once you understand the whole landscape, you understand that they're not legitimate actors in a legitimate process. They're actually victims. And so I've started treating my Democrat brainwashed critics with sympathy. And I just say, I'm sorry they did this to you. Because that's my actual feeling. I don't feel like they're attacking me because they had some independent, well-researched thought. and they've decided that attacking me will help them in some way. Attacking me isn't going to help anybody. I actually don't have any incentives other than to try to make things a little better before I leave this weird little ball they call the earth. I don't need your money, you know? And obviously I'm not doing it for reputation, because I've been the most disgraced and maligned person in the United States probably this year who wasn't named Trump. So I'm only doing it because my payoff is if I make something better, then I feel good about myself. That's it. So that makes me kind of dangerous. Anyway, once you understand the model, and if we have a way to communicate it. So here's the key point. It's not good enough that I explained it to you. That doesn't help anybody. It would only be good if this could be operationalized, turned into a sort of a standard way of explaining things, so that whenever Democrats come in and they're victims, they've been brainwashed, you could show them something. Now, the ideal form, I'll just brainstorm a little bit. An ideal form would be some kind of a graphic that's maybe not exactly this, but something in that nature, where you could click on any part of it to validate that it belongs on here. In other words, you could click on one of these groups and you could say, here's a news story that shows you why they're not legitimate. Here's a news story that shows they get all their funding from Democrats, right? So if you could do that, here's the fact that Phil Bump is ever involved in a story. If you knew the landscape, as soon as you saw his name, you'd say, it's a Phil Bump situation. As soon as you turned on the news and you saw any one of these designated liars, Schiff, Swalwell, you can make the list yourself. There's some people that the news calls in because they know it's not true, but they need people who are willing to say literally anything in order to get somebody on TV who will support the narrative. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my double whiteboard explanation of how everything works.